Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting franchise interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on the show. Today, you're going to get to hear a quote from Peter Baldine. And Peter was a guest that we had on the show many years ago, and it's interesting because you can kind of go back 13, 14 years ago to our earliest podcast and still learn some great lessons. Peter is the Chief Development Officer for Moran Industries, and Peter, on this particular podcast, discusses some of the several advantages of franchising compared to non-franchise businesses, things like support, guidance, and instantaneous relationships. So here we go with Peter Baldine of Moran Industries.
You know, franchising is all about systems. It's about, business systems that work, okay? And it's not always as all that specific to the widget that you're selling as it is to the systems that you provide the franchisee in order to run their business successfully. Okay, right. And Moran Industries has the infrastructure in place with all the various support systems that a franchisee really needs to be effective in how they run their business. Keep in mind that a new franchisee coming into, owning their first business is not used to having to be the person with all the answers in several different areas of the business world, So someone who opens up an independent business has to be the HR person, the operations person, the marketing person, the financial person, all those different aspects have to be covered and all those different decisions have to be made. And with a system like Moran Industries, one of the great things is that our franchisees don't really have to be the experts in all those areas. They can pick up the phone any day of the week and they can call, the marketing department or the operations department or the accounting department and get support and answers for the decisions that they have to make on a daily basis. So that infrastructure, is critical to the success of new franchisees who haven't owned their own business before.
Yeah, you're right.
And it starts all the way back in the beginning. It starts all the way back in the beginning when they first sign those agreements with all the help that we give them in the startup phase. You have two different aspects of it. You've got the startup support where we're helping them with, site selection and lease negotiation and equipment purchases and all those types of things. And then you move into a different area of development once they open their doors with the ongoing, support that they receive.
Right, fantastic. You wrote that great article, Peter. It was called "Gaining an Edge with Vendor-Supplier Relations." I saved that one in my archives. It sounds like Moran Industries has strong relationships with their vendor partners, which is fantastic for your new franchisees and your current franchisees, just working with you guys. Did you want to talk a little bit about that and why it's important?
Sure. I appreciate you mentioning that article. Didn't know that you had read it, but I actually, when that article was published, I got a lot of phone calls, from people in the industry about that article.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of a fun article to write because it's something that that I guess you have to be as old as me to understand those experiences,
Right.
but those vendor relationships are very important. My mentor, back years ago, I remember having dinner with him one night, and one of the things that he asked me a question. I said, "Geez, I'm not sure," and he said, what the answer to that is, and he said, "Well, you have to look at, in running a franchise company, you have to look at what all your available resources are to help your franchisees." And he asked me to define what my resources were. And I didn't define it real well at that time when I was a young kid,
Right.
But what I learned through that discussion early on was that you have a lot of different resources that, available to you that you don't always look at, you don't always recognize, and you don't always use properly. And the relationships with your vendors can be tremendous resources in helping your franchisees. We don't sell product to our franchisees.
Right.
We're not in the product business. We used to be in the product business, and we decided that for our business, at least, some people do that well, but for our business, we decided that it was a distraction, and what we really needed to focus our energy on was our core business, which was being a good franchisor. So we went back at that time and began really establishing strong vendor relationships, negotiating well on behalf of our franchisees to give them the savings so that their cost of goods would be lower than their competitors. Found in the process that we had many vendors who were willing to do other things for us, who were willing to share ideas with us on advertising and marketing support. For example, we've got a couple of vendors who have very strong marketing departments, and they work closely with our marketing department to help put together ad campaigns for our franchisees. So, the vendor relationships can be much more than just buying product. So our role with our vendors is to negotiate both purchases and services on behalf of our franchisees to give them the best deal possible out there.
Absolutely, and the franchisees appreciate that, which I guess you have a stronger relationship between the franchisee and franchisor, because you guys are
correct.
Out, so it's fantastic.
When we sold several years ago, when we sold our wholesale parts distributorship, we actually sold it to one of our vendors as part of the negotiations with bringing them on as a